Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Hello and welcome back to the Psych Legal Pop Podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about popular culture through the lens of an attorney and a therapist. I'm Tess Brigham. I'm the therapist.
And I'm Brooke Brigham. I'm the attorney.
And today we are talking about the latest Netflix documentary, Cold Case, Who Killed JonBenet Ramsey. But before we get into that, we just want to say this is being posted on Thanksgiving. So we just wanted to thank everybody, thank our listeners, whether you've been here with us since the beginning or you're new. Thank you so much for listening, for downloading the show, for showing up each week, twice a week. When we started this podcast over 2 years ago, I've said this many times, we really thought maybe our mother would listen to it. And then our uncle started listening to it. And then, we had 2 listeners and it's been incredible to see and to experience. So we just want to say thank you. Thank you so much.
We're very grateful. We really are.
And if you want to know more about us or our life or how we come, how we think about things, was it last year? Was it last Thanksgiving?
I think
we talked about our lives?
Thanksgiving 2023. Yeah.
We kind of broke down our life up until this point and sort of how we have sort of an unusual situation in terms of how we were raised, that we're full siblings, same parents, but Brooke was primarily raised by our father. I was primarily raised by our mother, and just how that is influenced, how we see the world. And I think that we would have been these people otherwise. I think each parent, I think, maybe enhanced it a bit more. I don't know. Yeah. But I often have moments in time where I'm like, oh God, I'm doing exactly what mom would do. You know how mom always has all these, how mom wants to help everyone and she's always, wants to take people in. I've realized I'm kind of the same way. I realized this about myself. I'm constantly giving people money or wanting to take them in or wanting to solve their problems. And it's like, oh God, I got to let this go.
And then I have to tell you don't take that on. That is not your problem.
I know. And I see mom because I make fun of mom. And then I'm like, this is me. I'm doing this now.
Yeah. Well, we are who we are. What can I say? But
that is true.
The success of the podcast is, it's in spite of all of that.
Yes, in spite of all of it.
Thanks to you. Success has been nice. So thank you very much. We appreciate our listeners. So this is
and so let's get into the murder of a 6-year-old girl.
Let's get into the murder.
You just had turkey. You're winding down for the evening. Let's talk about it.
Let's go to sleep with a little true crime on your brain. That seems healthy.
Yes. All right. So let's dive into it. Brooke, do you have a synopsis?
I do. This is a synopsis of not just the case, but of the documentary itself. And, I'm sure most people know about this case, but it's a good little refresher and in case you don't. Okay, so on the day after Christmas in 1996, John and Patsy Ramsey woke up to discover their 6-year-old daughter, JonBenet, the child beauty queen, was missing from the family's Boulder, Colorado home. A handwritten ransom note demanding $118,000, John's exact bonus that year, was found on the stairs by the kitchen. 7 hours later, John discovered his daughter's lifeless body in a small room in the basement. For decades, the case has captivated the nation. Now, 28 years later, John Ramsey remains hopeful that his daughter's killer will be caught. He believes new DNA technology could aid police in reinvestigating JonBenet's murder, a case that grew global attention. JonBenet's autopsy determined she had been sexually assaulted and strangled, and her skull was fractured. Unknown DNA was found under her fingernails and in her underwear. The Ramseys quickly became suspects, even though no evidence connected them to the crime. The Ramseys have consistently claimed they were not involved in JonBenet's murder. However, the Boulder District Attorney's Office took 12 years to fully exonerate the Ramseys and their son, Burke. As the weeks passed without any arrests in the case, a media frenzy began to build, fueled by nonstop tabloid images of JonBenet competing in beauty pageants. A number of suspects surfaced, including a man named John Mark Carr, who confessed to the killing in 2006. However, his DNA did not match the evidence, so he was never charged. The case remained open. To this day, John Ramsey believes his family has a cloud over them because there are still people in the country who believe that he and his late wife, Patsy, who died in 2006, are responsible for JonBenet's murder. There'd still be 5 to 10% of the population that think, yeah, it was the father, or yeah, it was the mother, John said. Despite the loss of his wife and daughter, John Ramsey remains steadfast. He is now remarried and finds comfort in his children and grandchildren. John is also working with director Joe Berlinger on a new docuseries streaming on Netflix titled Cold Case, Who Killed JonBenet Ramsey? We think the crime can be solved, Berlinger said. We want to pressure the Boulder police to test DNA. The docuseries revisits the early stages of the investigation. From the beginning, there were questions about the police handling of the investigation. Early on, they looked into this crazy idea that the parents were responsible, Berlinger said. They get tunnel vision, so they're not looking to investigate all possibilities. The crime scene is also under scrutiny as it was potentially contaminated, which created additional challenges, according to Berlinger. People were streaming through the house, moving from the kitchen to the living room. The Boulder Police Department told Nightline, "We are dedicated to following up on every lead. We continue to collaborate with DNA experts and our law enforcement partners across the country until this tragic case is resolved. This investigation will always remain a priority for the Boulder Police Department." John Ramsey is confident that advancements in DNA technology can help identify his daughter's killer. There's been a number of old cold cases solved using this genealogy research, John Ramsey said. Let's do a reverse family tree and see if he, the killer, had a relative living in Boulder in 1996. That's what we're asking the police to do.
All right. Well, before we started recording, I was saying that these true crime, these big sensational murders that happen, these true crime moments, I always think about them in terms of, who are the people that are obsessed with them, who isn't. And I think that your age and where you are in your life really does matter. And I think what's so interesting about this is I've always said that JonBenet is it's a millennial murder. All the people that are really fascinated by this, the other podcasters that we know that talk about this case a lot are, much younger. And we were just laughing. It was in 1996. I had been out of college for a year. I was living in San Francisco. I was partying and having fun and running around. And I don't think I knew what was happening, but I did not pay attention to this case at all. Nor did I really ever know much about it until that 2016 Jim Clemente CBS documentary, and we will get into that. Until that came out. And then that became what I thought was the truth. I was like, oh, okay, that all these experts are coming together. And now that I've watched this, I'm like, wait a second, that CBS documentary that was supposed to be so thorough didn't cover everything properly and didn't account for everything properly at all. So it was like, okay. So I'm with John Ramsey in the sense that, yeah, I mean, if I hadn't watched this documentary, I know it wasn't Burke, but I think I would still be stuck somewhere else thinking the family was somewhat involved until like, oh, okay, this is all laid out. Now, obviously they got the cooperation of John Ramsey. So it's very much leans towards him. I mean, it's slanted.
Well, but all
with his point of view, but they've got a lot of people that are also participating that are backing up what John is saying.
Yeah, I mean, and when it comes to right down to it, look, we know this story. We've been over it. We've been through it. They were never charged. So there was a reason. This case came off the OJ verdict, which was, what was that, 1995 was the verdict,
yes,
I believe.
95 was the verdict.
Okay, so this is 96. This happened. And, the media had this insatiable need to find the next story, and this is a very different case from OJ. OJ did have DNA that matched him. It was just very different. And so I feel like they were desperately trying to make this like OJ 2.0. And because they had the beauty pageant thing and, the one of the elements in this was, there was a photographer. They talk about this in the documentary. There was a photographer who went to these pageants and took pictures of all these girls and, would sell them to the parents or whoever. Well, he sold all of his photos to like the National Enquirer and all these tabloids. So there were just so many pictures of her.
Randy Simons.
Yeah, in these pageants. And they made that the center point of this case, that somehow this little girl was being exploited before she was murdered. And the people exploiting her were her parents. So therefore the parents are the murderers. And it was like the media, it was a combination of this media frenzy and then, just the frenzy of, look, we've talked every true crime case we talk about, there is one consistent theme. The police decide very early on who they think did it, and they never waver from that. They never change their minds. They never move off of that. And Boulder, Colorado, who probably has had 2 murders in the past 20 years, they didn't even have a dedicated homicide detective. Yeah. They had to bring the detective over from narcotics to do this case. So they're in over their heads. They don't know what they're doing. They're very unsophisticated. And it's like this perfect storm where you have the media and then you have the police and then, someone gets accused and everyone gloms onto it. And it's like, this story is just on repeat. And I feel like every case that we've covered that happened, 20, 30 years ago, it's just the same formula.
Yeah. Yeah. What I don't understand about this is I'm constantly amazed because they do interview people that were part of the original case. And it just feels like even the people, even they can't take any ownership. None of these journalists are willing to take any kind of accountability or ownership of maybe that they were part of the problem too, that they also were, because they wanted the story, so they were printing everything. There's very little accountability or understanding from anyone that was involved in the case. It's like the only person that I feel like really is sitting here taking any sort of ownership is the guy that ran the department, who's now retired. And that was so weird because he was the one that said, okay, we were going to silo people. And I thought this is how we were going to do it. So we brought this Steve Thomas over from homicide. And so basically the chief of police, was he the chief of police? The guy who ran, I guess he would be the chief of police. Chief of police at the time sort of almost took a very hands-off role in it. It was almost like, okay, well, Steve's in charge of it, so let's put Steve in charge of it. And then he basically said, oh, wait a second. When after everything came out, I started looking at everything and realized how off Steve Thomas was, or how much he didn't know. And I'm thinking to myself,
it was too late.
It was too late. And the other thing was, so even though he has the case, are you running? Wouldn't you check in? Wouldn't you sit down with Steve and say, hey, what's happening? Tell me your theory. Show me the evidence. It was very strange. And it was almost this kind of Boulder kind of like, hey man, let's just go with the flow kind of attitude about everything. It was just very weird. Like, but that guy was willing to take some ownership of the mistakes that he made. But anyway, I guess I'm just, time and time again, we see this over and over again of these police departments rushing to judgment, finding egg on their face. And yet, I guess I wonder, is it better today? Are the police better at this? And I don't think that they are. Like, this is a real problem that we can't seem to push past.
Well, I mean, there's no doubt that the DNA technology is better. And that's kind of at the core of this documentary, is that, so there was DNA evidence found from a unknown male, nobody within the household or the family, unknown male DNA found in her underwear, and it was actually mixed with some sort of other bodily fluids. Anyway, there was mixed DNA, which at that time you could put that into whatever system they had, and there were no matches. But now there's a process, there's so many more processes. Now there's this process where you can separate the DNA. Even if you have mixed DNA, you can separate it, test it separately. It's much more reliable. They have this genealogy. We've heard about these cases on where if you've ever done 23andMe, hopefully one of your relatives doesn't commit a murder, because they'll find them through you.
Yeah, Golden State Killer. Yeah.
Exactly. They search these databases. They find people with similar DNA who could be related, and they kind of work backwards from there. And then they end up finding these people. So all of this technology is now available, yet the Boulder Police Department has not taken advantage of any of it, which I think is disturbing, because if you're a district attorney, your job is to actually, find the real, murder, rapist, whatever it is. You would think that you would want to know, if you had the ability to say, hey, we have this new technology, you shouldn't be afraid to test it. If you think you have the right person, you prosecuted the right person, you convicted the right person, what are you afraid of? Do the testing, but it's totally discretionary. There's no law that says that these district attorneys have to go back and do new testing, and that should be the law. You should be required to.
And do you think they'll ever have any law? Do you think anyone will ever bring this up?
I mean, that's a huge thing in the criminal justice system, is that there's no automatic retesting of DNA. It's like you have to, as a defendant, you have to get a lawyer to file a motion and bring this up, and then it could be denied. There's no guarantee that you're going to get it.
And when I was watching this, all I could think was the reason why Patsy and John never spent a day in prison is because they were rich and white, because they were able to hire a defense attorney, really a good one, really quickly.
But they were never charged.
I know, but they were being looked at, but they were smart because they stopped talking. I just feel like if this was somebody else, right? They said that in the documentary. There's lots of people that are serving life sentences for crimes they did not commit because they get them in the box to confess.
Yeah, false confessions,
all that kind of stuff. So they were, because they had money, they were a bit insulated in that way. But at the same time, they really were judged very harshly as parents for allowing their daughter to be in these beauty pageants. And I do think that clouded a lot of it. A lot of this was about just moral judgment of like, I would never do that to my child. You're sexualizing your child. I would never do that. And that attitude of, well, I wouldn't do that. So therefore, and I'm a good parent. So therefore, what does that mean? And I just don't think that's particularly fair. Yes, do I think these beauty pageants are great? No, but I also don't think that someone having their child be in one is automatically means that you're not a good parent.
It doesn't mean anything. My daughter was in dance and cheer and everything for years, and put on makeup and did her hair and wore skimpy outfits. It's like, what we're blaming the victim now?
Yes.
We're blaming a 6-year-old because she competed in beauty pageants and her mom allowed it. And, give me a break. I mean, that's disgusting. The fact that they even brought that into this at all is disgusting, and it's sexist. And, they tried to make it out like Patsy Ramsey was somehow living vicariously through her. And, because I think she used to do beauty pageants, and somehow if JonBenet upset her or disobeyed her or whatever, that she's going to beat her to death or kill her. I mean, it was so sexist. There was this one, speaking of that Steve Thomas guy.
Oh, Steve Thomas.
His this is the motive that he had the sexist theory about this motive that, Patsy was, it was a combination of her being stressed about turning 40.
I missed that.
That it was it was Christmas time, and JonBenet wet the bed, and oh my God, then she just flew off the handle.
Yeah, this theory was so crazy because he kept saying toileting issues. Larry King's like, what do you mean by that? But yeah, his theory was that Patsy, who just recovered from stage 4 ovarian cancer. So let's not also forget that her, it takes a long time for those drugs to get through your system. Your body is very weak for a long time. Okay, so she just survived ovarian cancer. She just went through all this chemo. It's Christmas time. This is her child. It's the holidays. She's not stressing out about turning 40. She's so grateful to be alive.
Yes.
To turn 40. She wants to be with her kids. And because her daughter wet the bed, she then takes a hard object, whacks her on the head with it, and then builds a garrote. I'm going to get my paintbrushes, takes her paintbrushes, breaks them in half, and starts building a garrote and then molesting her child with it.
Yeah.
Like, where are you going with this, Steve? I'm sorry, but that makes, if it was just the bump on the head, okay, but for her to do all the other things, it's just nutty.
While John Ramsey is in the house?
Yeah, and her son. And this is 10 o'clock at night or first thing in the morning, because they didn't get home till 10 or 11 o'clock at night. And then, so the kids probably went right to bed. And then the next day they were up really early. She said it was still dark out. So at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning, or at 11 o'clock at night, I'm sorry. Nobody's in that state of mind at that point. It's the end of the day. You're just kind of like, go to bed. Oh, we'll change the sheets tomorrow, or come sleep with me. Like, you don't care. You don't care.
Yeah, you're not going to put the kid in the bathtub and go through all that.
Oh, God, no. You're just going to clean it up the best you can and move forward.
Yeah, deal with it tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's so much going on here that it's kind of hard to know where to focus, because they just threw whatever they possibly could at these people. And here's the thing, too, is that there's a lot of things about this case that I don't want to say don't make sense, because you can make sense out of a lot of things. But I feel like, especially with these inexperienced police departments, they feel like they have to wrap everything up in this bow, and there has to be an explanation for everything. And that nobody could really ever get an explanation about this ransom note. It was the one thing that really made no sense. It was kind of like, okay, well, if you're going to kidnap her and leave a ransom note, then why did you leave a ransom note if you know she's dead? I mean, there were so many weird things about it. But my attitude is that it doesn't have to make sense, because guess what? Murder doesn't make sense. The mind of a murderer doesn't make sense. And after the fact, they discover all of these weirdo sex offender people who were in the area, and simply because they couldn't connect them with DNA, with their shitty DNA, that wasn't a very good sample and, didn't have very good technology at the time. I mean, how did they know that one of these weirdos wasn't camped out in their house in that basement for days? Yeah. Because I looked at the floor plan of that basement. It's not just a basement. It is, you walk down the stairs and there are multiple rooms. There's like 6 different rooms within the basement. And the room where there was that broken window where the intruder ostensibly went in and out of is a completely different room than where JonBenet's body was found. Her body was found in in a room, like the farthest room from the stairs in a corner, in this little room. You easily could have lived in that basement undetected for weeks. This intruder could have come and gone, could have been there when they left the house. He goes upstairs. He's rifling through stuff. He's working on his ransom note.
Yeah, I was going to say, maybe he was working on the ransom note and like, maybe this is what I'm going to do, because it did feel like whatever was happening here, some was planned and some wasn't.
Right.
Do you know what I mean? Because the garrote was made from a
paintbrush.
A paintbrush that was there. So it's a little bit like, yeah, why wouldn't you bring your own? Like, usually people bring their own stuff. And it's like, so if this is like your kink to choke someone, why would this be such a last minute thing? And, there's things about this that are weird. And I also do wonder if maybe the person was originally going to take JonBenet somewhere else and then realize like, oh God, I can't drag her up. I can't get her
out the
window the way in which I came. So maybe I'll just do it here. And, the whole thing was bizarre. But yeah, there was another girl. I don't know if it was that same year or 6 or 7 months later. I can't remember. But another girl was almost attacked by an intruder. And this young girl also went to the same dance studio as JonBenet, and I think was part of that whole kind of crew of what they were doing. And the police's explanation was, no, it couldn't possibly be the same person because he was just coming in. He didn't kill the girl. And I'm like, yeah, you numbnuts. He didn't kill the girl because the mom chased him off.
Yeah, it wasn't successful. He didn't have enough time.
Yeah, guess what? Not all murders happen. Like, they're just acting like if it's not a murder, if they didn't complete it, then it's not who they are. It's like, that is the dumbest thing I've ever heard in my entire life. But much like so many of these other cases that we've seen where it's like plain as day, someone else that should be investigated or at least followed up, they're not even bothering to do anything with. And that's the part I don't quite understand. It's like, you are so hammered into your one point that no matter who comes to you and says, hey, because if someone comes to me and says, hey, I want to present another theory to me, I will always listen. I will always listen to it. I'm always open to it. And I just kind of feel like, what the what?
Yeah, it seems like one theme that constantly runs through police departments, homicide detectives, all this kind of stuff, is that you got to solve this case quickly, because then there's several reasons. If someone's still at large, the public could still be in danger. Obviously the family wants answers, the public wants answers. There's no patience.
Yeah.
There's no patience in these situations. There's no patience when a crime has been committed. There's no patience for investigation. There's such a rush to judgment every single time. And the police, if the police, I understand, like if the police every time the police had to change course and say, oh, no, we were wrong. It's not this person. I can understand how people's trust in them would be eroded. Well, guess what? Don't announce so quickly what you think. Why don't you can't wait. You can't wait. You don't have to come out and name someone right away. You can't wait till you do a thorough investigation and you're certain. And it's something so weird that has just been just a factor in this since,
I think that we feel, I think it's all those things. Absolutely. That the rush, like the police feeling pressure to solve this, pressure to fix it. Listen, I feel that too as a therapist. Sometimes you feel pressure, like I got to figure this out. I got to help this person. And I understand that. But the other thing too, that makes it that I just don't know, I'm losing my train of thought, of course, is the rush to judgment. I think a lot of times we do that as a way of sort of trying to make sense of and manage our own anxiety.
Yeah.
Because when things like this happen, it's very scary. It's scary for parents. It's scary for children. It's scary for everyone. It's scary for the community. Absolutely. And so we want to fix it. And I think that's also why so much of the beauty pageant stuff was latched onto. Because again, it was like, well, my daughter, I don't put my daughter in those pageants. So therefore, I'm not, I won't risk my daughter being targeted, by some pedophile or something, whatever it is. Like, that's the big deciding factor. But I do think we feel this great need to make sense of it all.
Yeah.
And I think that's where it comes from. And then I think it's, the pressure on the police to figure it out. And then we saw this too, where I guess Patsy and John did an interview with CNN, and they did it pretty quickly. Apparently Patsy seemed really out of it. Like, they gave her some meds, which I could understand. If I was Patsy, I too would be medicated. And she mentioned, like, there's a killer on the loose. And really, truly, she was just trying to say, listen, there's someone out there. Stop looking at us. And then what happened was, right, the mayor gets on, then the media comes back and the mayor gets on there and says, hey, no, there's no killer, right? Because they're trying to calm people down in Boulder. And they really let the poor Ramseys hang up, out to dry, for sure. Like the police and the government and the local, the mayor and all the local government there really just did not have their backs at all. Because the minute she made that comment about killer on the loose, it's almost like they all got up in a tither. Like, how dare you say that?
Well, it's like
someone came into our house and killed our daughter. So
right. And you have no proof that I did it. So, hello.
But they're being blamed for it. And I remember that too, that they were really blamed for it. But I think that's the thing. It's almost like the beauty pageant stuff gave us permission to judge the parents. And just like them.
Yeah. And, that's the thing. It's like, again, going back to when someone commits a crime, if someone, leaves this weird rambling, ransom note for whatever reason, it could have just been the musings of a crazy person. It could have been put there intentionally to throw people off. Who knows? But again, murder doesn't get wrapped up in a nice package. A murder, it's like, if someone has that kind of mindset that they're going to do this, they're going to stalk. I think they were stalking this family.
Yeah.
I think that that murderer had been in and out of the house many times, was hiding out in the house.
And this might be their MO. Sorry. This might be their thing. Their thing might be going into people's houses and coming in and coming out and coming in and coming out, and then
seeing what they can get away with.
Yeah. Seeing what, like, can I sit here in the closet and, watch you? Can I do this? Can I do that? And it is possible that maybe this person had been coming in and out, and that maybe for whatever reason, they were like, maybe JonBenet saw them and it was like, oh crap, stun gun. And that's when they had to kind of improvise. I don't know.
Yeah. There's also evidence that the stun gun was used on her.
And she was tortured. They said she was tortured. There was, so it was sexual in nature, but I don't even know if that's really what even happened or what the motivation was, because you're right. The whole thing felt very chaotic, in a lot of ways.
I think it was definitely someone who knew this family and had been in the house. Maybe had overheard conversations. This is so much more complicated than, one of the parents did it or the brother did it, and they're all, covering up for each other. That's like the easy explanation. And there's no evidence to support that at all.
Yeah. Basically, all they really had was the note, and John gave them samples from both Patsy and him. And I guess he gave them notebooks. And one page on Patsy's notebook was the quote unquote, the first draft, which said Mr. and Mrs. Ramsey. And it looked like it would be the start of one. Again, then they automatically was like, they were like, oh, it was Patsy. It had to be her. And it's a little bit like, well, hold on a second here. I mean, you think she'd be so dumb to like give you the pad?
To leave the pad there. But here's another thing that I didn't understand was that, okay, I assume they had an expert do a handwriting analysis. The police said that this expert reported only marked similarities to Patsy's handwriting, which I thought was strange, because I've had cases where we've, tried to prove forgery and used a handwriting expert. And they're pretty definitive. They're very definitive in whether or not something is a forgery. They're pretty good with that. So I felt like they were being very cagey.
Yeah,
about that.
My impression from what I heard, the people that they interviewed on this doc, they were all sort of saying, no, there was no match. And that had been decided many times. They had done this many times.
Yeah, they tried to say there were marked similarities, but they had nothing to back that up with. So there was basically...
And that's part of the problem, was that those facts never got out. Do you know what I mean? Like anything that would show their innocence in any way, shape, or form was never released. What was released was they're not cooperating. What was released was that,
Right. No, it's true. Because, if you look at Patsy, she has no mental health history, no pathology. They didn't find any sort of jealousy or envy of JonBenet, no violent tendencies, no psychiatric history, no depression, psychosis, postpartum, substance abuse, personality. I mean, literally, there's nothing. Psych Legal Pop will be right back after these messages.
Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
You're saying this woman snapped because her daughter peed the bed?
Yeah. And then you proceeded to whack her. I mean, honestly, if a mom was going to snap in that moment, she might swat her kid on the bottom. But she snapped like taking a thing and whacking her on the head and then building a
skull
garage.
Fracture. Yeah.
I mean, that is crazy.
Skull fracture.
Crazy making. I mean, that's the part that's a little bit like, huh? Yeah. And I was talking to you before about back to the media. Because of all of the cases that I think we've covered, this one, I mean, OJ was very much like this, but, in a different way. Because this case, so many of the police decided they needed to become celebrities. Do you know what I mean? So,
that guy, they were on Larry King.
Yes. I mean, that Steve Thomas was everywhere. And we'll get into like him writing the book. But before him, there was this woman, Linda, Arndt. How do you... Arndt. So she was the responding officer. And we see her on Good Morning America, where she basically says definitively, I know who did it. I'm going to tell you all who did it. It was John Ramsey. I looked him in the eye. He, and basically she went through a litany of things of, she didn't like the way John, how they responded to her. They didn't think they were acting like two people. They were acting like two people who had a dead child, not a kidnapped child, even though her body hadn't been discovered yet. Like, this responding officer made a host of judgments based on vibes alone, on her vibes. And I think that's also part of the problem too, is I think a lot of times cops think that they can see better because of their job, that they can see, right? They automatically assume, well, I would know, like I can tell if someone's lying to me, that kind of attitude. It's like, I don't know about that. I think that certainly certain jobs allow you to see a lot more of that. Certain jobs will give you a little bit more of those things, but you don't know definitively. People are too good at being liars. You don't know definitively. But this woman was able to go on GMA And basically she was the one that she turned to John before. This was just during the kidnapping. So they don't know where she is. She turns to him, to John, and to his friend and says, why don't you look around? And apparently, according to her, he went right to the spot where JonBenet's body was found and then discovered him. And I'm like, so basically you're admitting that you didn't do your job properly at all on GMA, because you should not have let the father go look for the kid. It was just so weird, because that was another weird factor of all of this, because the house was her. He found her. The house was contaminated. Like it was a kidnapping, and they called 911, but apparently they had told them, well, bring some family, like bring friends over because you need support, during this very difficult time, but they never secured the house. Mm-hmm. So all these people were traipsing through the house. John should not have found JonBenet. So obviously it also told you that they hadn't even been looking, like they hadn't even searched the whole house. No, they weren't looking
for her. They were treating it like a kidnapping.
Yeah. They went right to that place. But that's the other part of it too. It's like, well, you were treating this like a kidnapping, and then now, lady, because of your vibes, now it's a murder. It's like, it's just, they're grasping at straws. And then I can't believe that Boulder Police is okay with them going on a national TV show and talking about an active case. That's the part I don't get. How could she have gone on GMA?
Yeah, and that Steve Thomas went on Larry King and debated the Ramsey.
Yeah, and wrote a book.
Crazy.
Wrote a book, which I'm sorry, I cannot. I'm glad they sued. I really am. And I hope Steve Thomas got 0 for that book. He should not get dime one, because that is ridiculous. You have no business writing a book about this. No business.
No. It's conflict of interest. all of
God, yes.
So then, and the district attorney of the count, what was the guy's name? Alex
Smith,
something. He submits this case to the grand jury because he doesn't, no charge, he knows he doesn't have enough evidence to charge these people. Mm-hmm. So he submits it to the grand jury so that way the grand jury can subpoena people, they can investigate it, they can subpoena documents. And even after all of that and, getting whatever they possibly could get, the only indictment that they were willing to hand over was for basically felony child abuse. Mm-hmm. Because just based on the fact that something happened to this girl, this girl was killed under your care in your house. So you didn't protect her in some way or somehow. And so they were, like accessories to the murder, but there was no evidence of murder, no probable cause. And, probable cause is the absolute lowest, standard. And so this DA, he knew he couldn't bring charges. You can't prosecute a case that you don't think that you can actually convict someone beyond a reasonable doubt. And, so there's nothing. It went nowhere.
Yeah. Well, and also there was a bit of a fight or feud between the DA's office and the Boulder Police Department, correct? Because I got the sense that wasn't it the DA's office that hired Lou Smith to investigate?
Well, he came out of retirement to investigate, but then he quit because he felt that he disagreed with what the Boulder police were doing. The DA's office didn't hire him. He came out of retirement to work with the Boulder police.
Got it. Okay. Case. Okay. Yeah. I thought the DA were like, listen, let's get an actual homicide detective, someone who actually knows what they're doing.
No.
I got the impression that they were like, can we have him? Let's get this guy to investigate it.
They're two separate entities. Okay. They can't control each other.
Despite what so whether they're feuding or not, they get someone who everyone agrees is like Sherlock Holmes, great detective, an actual homicide detective that really knows what he's doing. And he's coming right in and saying, the parents didn't do this. I don't see this. He keeps they keep telling him like, well, no one could break into that bottom window. And he shows them. He's like, watch me. Like, I'm going to lift this up. He was 66. He was able to crawl down and get there. He's like, see, that's how you got in. And he was the one that believed that there was a stun gun because there were two very similar marks on her body with the same equal distance. So he was like, that is, and I guess the prongs are square. And that looks like a stun gun, which makes a lot of sense. How do you subdue her? Right? With it, because no one heard screaming, right? I would assume if she started screaming. So yeah, you walk over here, you stun her, she's done. She's out. And she can't scream. And that made a lot more sense than anything else anybody was saying. But, he was starting to be seen as like delusional. Like they kept, and that's what made him quit. He was like, F you people. Like how dare you? You asked me to investigate this. I'm not agreeing with you. So now I'm delusional.
Yeah.
It's unreal what we do to people. If people don't agree with us, it's like, well, you're an idiot.
Yeah. Well, look, these police, they had set their course. They were not going to change their mind. No way, no how. And even if they did, again, there's still no physical evidence linking the Ramseys to this. There isn't. There's DNA in her underwear of a male outside of the family.
Well, but do you remember that they went all the way to China to figure out who manufactured it to see if there's an unknown male that touched the underwear?
A white male. If some unknown white male working in the factory deposited his pubic hair into her underwear.
Then please fire him.
That's how far these idiots went.
He went all the way to China to find some white guy. To find a white man that works at the factory that is like jerking off in the kid's underwear.
Yeah.
Packaged.
And then what are you going to do? You don't have any jurisdiction over this guy. How are you going to
hey, buddy, why don't you come back to the U.S. with us? And we'll talk about this for a little bit. Yeah.
I mean, that right there, that just tells you what.
But that's the thing, those grand jury guys, they really are digging in. They're like, listen, we went so far as to do this, this, and this. And it's like, yeah, you're showing us your cards. You're showing us.
You're desperate.
Okay. So, but we do have to talk about Geraldo Rivera. And I'm sorry, but I'm very angry at Geraldo Rivera. He seems to pop up on a lot of these things of doing a lot of very sensational things. And
he was a terrible person back then.
Yeah.
I don't know what he's like now, but he was awful.
But this was the other thing about Geraldo Rivera, because I remember when he came back around, everyone was talking about him, that apparently he had been around a while. Like he was once a very respected journalist.
He was once a serious journalist, worked for, Nightline or 2020 or something.
And then he did that Al Capone thing that was just a bomb.
Yeah. And then he got his own show and he just started doing these sensationalized. Remember, he had the Ku Klux Klan people on and they broke out in a fight and he got his nose broken.
That's right.
I mean, he was like, Jerry Springer-esque before Jerry Springer. But Jerry Springer didn't take himself seriously. Or they were talking about cheating on, he was trying to make himself be like some serious news person.
So as a very serious news person, he is going to, do a mock trial.
A one-sided mock trial.
Yeah, a one-sided mock trial of the case. They got 6 jurors and, they get this expert, this woman who is she's a child abuse expert. And she had watched 23 hours worth of film. And she says, and in one of the images that she watched was basically JonBenet mimicking or masturbating, like mimicking masturbation for a minute and a half. Okay. So basically, during the holidays, JonBenet, I think, had this plastic saxophone, or she picked it up, or they were somewhere.
It was a pageant.
Oh, okay. And she was playing.
Performing at a pageant.
Yeah.
It was the
and dancing.
Portion. Yeah.
Okay. I couldn't quite figure out. And so she had this plastic thing and she's saxophone that she's got, and she's, playing with it, and she's playing it with the way in which someone plays with a saxophone. Like you turn it up, you put it down, you rock to side to side. So I was saying to Brooke before we started, I don't know what that woman's doing home alone, but that was, but that's not what you think it is, lady.
Mind.
Yeah, you do. Because it would be one thing if she had like, I don't know, a flute or a clarinet that she was or something like, what the? But this was so innocuous. And you're like, that is someone reaching. You are desperately reaching and looking for things. And the fact that no one in that, like no one else can see that, it was just,
Well, it did make me a little, if it made me feel a little better, like looking at how horrible the media was during this trial. I thought to myself, well, that would never go over today. So maybe that's progress.
Yeah, maybe we are growing.
And this was worse than OJ. I mean, the OJ case saw some pretty crazy, reporting and new stuff. This was another level beyond.
Yeah.
I mean, the level that the news just so desperately wanted to be just salacious and just over the top. It was disturbing.
Yeah.
Like what's happening?
It was a rough time. It really was. I mean, this was the early aughts. This was the late 90s into the early aughts. This was, a time where tabloids and tabloid television was huge. The tabloids were huge.
This is the Jerry Springer era. Yeah.
The Paris Hilton and Lindsay Lohan, and she, the papers were always so sexist about all the, Britney and all the, as we've all seen. And so, of course, they treated JonBenet like another prop or another object. And because she was in all these pageants, they had a lot of photos of her. Mm-hmm. They really did. And they had a lot of material of her. Mm-hmm. And every day there was some new story about some new thing that happened, to the point where they were starting to make comments that they think maybe the story was that they were trying to spread that was John had molested and was molesting JonBenet on an ongoing basis. Again, zero proof of this at all. His other daughter came out and said, what are you talking about? This is not, you got to be kidding me. But then they were starting to blame, because John's oldest daughter, Beth, died in a tragic car accident when JonBenet was like a year and a half. And they were trying to blame John for all of that, that he had molested, that he had molested Beth before she died in that car accident. I mean, they were taking everything.
That's disgusting.
It is. It's bad. But the Steve Thomas guy, I mean, he frightens me because he's got that kind of all-American, good-looking Colorado look, and he is very good at giving this very earnest face and very like, oh, gee willikers, I just got here. Look at me. But then he will do these diabolical things. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean? I think he's kind of like a wolf in sheep's clothing, I think. I think there's something, again, my theory, my 2 cents, none of this is proof, but there's something about this guy that just feels a little off. Like okay, you have this theory and then you get so mad that you resign in protest, and then you're in all of this news, and then and
then you write a book.
And then you write a book. But he was also, we see him in all of these depositions, giving these depositions. It's like, you've already been deposed and now you're going to write a book. This guy really wanted to be famous. Mm-hmm. He really, I think this is what I'm picking up on. Like, there was something about this. Like, he really decided that, oh, this is going to be my moment. And he wasn't going to let it go.
Yeah. So he writes a book, and then the Ramseys sue him for $80 million. It was settled for an undisclosed amount. But he was a real douchebag.
He was. Was that $80 million? I thought they sued him for $750 million.
That was Burke.
Oh, Burke. Okay, good for him.
So let's
talk about the CBS thing.
Yeah, it was at 2016. Mm-hmm. So there was this CBS special, and it was with Jim Clemente and Laura Richards from the True Crime Profile podcast. Both, he's a former FBI profiler. She's the equivalent. Works in Scotland Yard in England. And, I respect those two. Mm-hmm. Well, I did. I don't know. And then they had some other people, some other investigators, some other people.
Well, they had also gotten that Werner Herzog, who everyone probably knows. They got who's the Asian?
The guy from the OJ trial.
Yeah.
Dr. Harry, what was his name? I can't remember his last name.
Yeah, but they got like the top
they had
people.
Top experts. In this field. Yeah.
But I remember that. And
Henry Lee.
So they got the best of the best with this idea of, okay, let's all get together and recreate this. And they obviously put a lot of time and money into this. They recreated the kitchen. They had to hold
the house. They recreated a replica to scale, like, of the whole house.
And everything that was out, like if there was the flashlight that was sitting on the counter, it was there, all of it. And do you remember them at all mentioning the unknown DNA of the male? Because they never mentioned that. And that's huge. How do you explain that?
Yeah, I don't know. I think it was edited in reverse. So basically their conclusion was that the brother Burke killed her, hit her over the head with this big flashlight that was sitting on the kitchen counter because she had eaten some of his pineapple. And, they were talking about her stomach contents, and there was pineapple in her stomach, and this time, and based upon this and this, he killed her. They were having some late night snack in the kitchen of pineapple with milk on it. And she took some of it, and he was pissed, and he bludgeoned her. And then the parents found her dead and didn't want both of their children to, be lost to them. So they staged this kidnapping, to cover it up. And that was that. That was their theory. That was it. He did it. Burke did it. So Burke, who at that point is an adult, he sued CBS for $750 million. And it was settled for an undisclosed amount. But he also, around the same time, he went on Dr. Phil.
And I thought that was weird. That was not smart.
He didn't come off very well. He came off as being kind of weird, smiling a lot and nervously sort of laughing. And didn't come off. Doesn't mean he's guilty, but I mean, I don't know why he felt the need to do that. But I mean, look, I understand if someone accuses you of murdering your sister, I mean, it's kind of hard to not respond. So, that was that.
I was just looking up something on Steve Thomas. I was just seeing someone on Reddit. It's like, I think it was a fantastic read. Steve Thomas is a good writer and very professional in every sense. Boulder lost a good officer.
Oh my God.
Okay. I mean, and I think this is who he is. I think he loves the fact that he's like this, seen as this Boy Scout. So I was really bothered by that with the CBS thing, because I felt like in my mind, I was thinking, well, all of these people are they weren't part of the case. They're going to come into it with a fresh perspective and fresh mind and look at it all. And of course, at CBS, why would they make some giant claim that they didn't really feel that they could back up? And then seeing how much that it didn't address so many different things, especially the DNA, it's a little bit like, and they didn't even talk about the garrote or any of that kind of stuff. Because
I think they edited that out because it didn't fit their narrative.
Yeah. So that was very weird. And so, I'm with you. I really respect, especially Laura Richardson. I mean, Jim Clemente, I respect him. I mean, I think he knows what he's talking about, but this was weird. Like, why would you do this?
Yeah. Well, that's what I felt like throughout this whole entire case and the aftermath. I feel like there's this real bias against people wanting to believe. People just don't want to believe that this could happen randomly. I think it's too much for people's brains to accept. Yeah. And I think it's too much for people's brains to accept that little girls and women are kidnapped and killed all the time.
Yes.
Randomly. And it's not hard to kidnap a little girl. Okay. It happens all the time, and it happens randomly by strangers. And I think that that's a very scary concept for people, and they will just twist themselves like a pretzel to try to find, no, there's an explanation here. The mother got mad because she wet the bed and she killed her. Okay. Men stalk women and girls and kill them very frequently, more than people understand or even want to accept.
Yeah, I think, you know what, the other thing too is I think there's a lot more people out there, you know how they call it soft swinging? It's a little bit like soft stalking a little bit. Like there's a lot of people that stalk, but they and most likely they will never come to your home and hurt you. But I was chatting with someone I know, and she's been going through a situation like this with someone. And again, all of the things that he's doing, he's not knocking on her door. He's not following her. It's all of these weird things of being able to control and, okay, I'm going to be able to see everything where you're going, and I'm going to mess with your phone, and I'm going to mess with your internet. And do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
People who know technology enough can do all of that.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot more of that happening. And I believe women are we are the targets.
Yeah. No, I could tell you some stories. I don't know if they're really appropriate for the podcast, of stuff that's happened to my daughter. And
oh God, are you talking about like weird men looking on Instagram?
Oh, weird men everywhere, all over the place. And
I know.
Like at her job, and that men feel entitled to, ask you out on a date when you don't even know them.
Oh, men feel entitled to touch you.
Yeah.
And touch you in various places without your permission. But I remember when we were down in San Diego, we went on to that Old Town place. Do you remember this? And we were wandering around, and there was this guy on the bus. That guy creeped me out so much. He just stared at Layla the whole time. And then we were in this outdoor plaza. He sat on a bench and ate chips and stared at her like she was a goddamn movie, to the point where I was just like, oh my God, we got to get out of here. Like, I can't, I'm sure Layla gets it constantly. Well, and also like, I don't know, I don't want to say too much, but like really gross things happen where she works. And it's just, it is a thing. And I think back to, when I was a young woman, stuff like that happened to me too. And I was more, we're from a generation where I don't think we were as aware of like, that we should be this upset about it. We just sort of like put our head down and like, oh, whatever, No. How dare you blossom into a woman and have large breasts? How dare I do that? That right there. That was I was sexualized since I was a baby. Yeah. I can't tell you how much the world stared at me, and how, it does affect you. It does make you look at the world differently. And it does make you kind of feel like, okay, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for existing. I'm so sorry that my presence in your life is affecting you in some way, shape, or form. It's that feeling.
Yeah, no,
women are mad.
Exactly. Girls and women are preyed upon and sexualized and harassed and all of it. So much so that half the time we don't even realize it's happening because we are just so immune to it. We're so we're just like, oh, this is just life. And it's not until you get older that you go, wait a minute, like, what the fuck? And then you watch it happen to your daughter and you're like, it's so, I just think that this is disturbing, and people want to find an alternate explanation besides the explanation that someone stalked and abused and killed this girl in her own home. And her parents didn't even know it was happening and couldn't save her, couldn't stop it. That's too much for the brain to process, I think.
Yeah. And it was and they lived in a nice neighborhood, and it was safe, and they're rich and blah, 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 blah.
They probably didn't even lock their doors.
Oh,
That's probably how this person got in most of the time.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I want to talk a little bit about, so in the third episode, they start going through like all the creepy people that could potentially be the killer. And, we meet Randy Simons, who was the photographer. And that whole thing is like, how does he have the right to sell? I mean, he took the photos, I understand, but this guy must have made a fortune from selling all those photos of JonBenet, because he was the one selling them to the tabloids, right?
Yeah.
So, but then he was later arrested in 2019 for downloading child porn.
Oh, surprise, surprise.
Yeah, he spent 10 years in prison, but his DNA was not found at the crime scene. So it wasn't him. There was this other guy, John Brewer Eustace. He raped and kidnapped a child in North Carolina. But guess what? Because he had a shrine to JonBenet in his house, but his DNA did not match. How crazy is this?
Gosh, well then let's just leave him alone.
And so there was this guy named Michael Tracy, who we see throughout the episode. He was always very pro the Ramseys. He felt like there was a real rush to judgments with the Ramseys. He wanted to show an alternative. He wanted to tell their story. And so they worked with him on a documentary. So apparently, I guess in 2000 when was this when this first started? About 2002, an anonymous person emailed Michael Tracy and he called himself Daxus. And apparently he emailed him, Michael, for 4 years between 2002 and 2006, basically saying, I'm the one that killed JonBenet, told them the story. And they ended up taping a bunch of conversations they had with him. I guess there was an 11-hour conversation. We hear part of it where he talks about what happened. Mm-hmm. And so they knew that they knew this guy, like there was an original photo of JonBenet. And so they tricked him and said, well, can we mail it to you? We'll give you the original. Give us an address. And he's like, okay. The guy spent a lot of time protecting himself from not being found out. Mm-hmm. So there's a part of me that kind of feels like maybe he hit a wall and decided I'd like to be found out.
Well, he wanted that picture. So
I guess he wanted the picture too. So they sent the picture to Bangkok because this is where the guy said it to. Sent it to
P.O. Box in Bangkok.
And they found him and they watched him for a week. And basically they're like, oh no, this guy's a child predator and he's working at a school. And so they discovered John Mark Carr, who, out of central casting,
child molester. Yes. No, I remember when this happened. Yeah. And everyone was like, oh my God, they found who killed JonBenet. No. He's just a psycho who just fantasized about it and wish he did.
Yes, but he is a child sex predator, and boy did he look it. I mean, boy did he check every box of like, ooh, he really was. But and apparently he had been arrested for an incident that happened in Petaluma, California.
I know.
And so this is what I want to ask you about this because I was so confused because I thought because he'd been on the run for a while, and so when they captured him, they brought him back. He came back to Boulder. Basically, they realized like, oh crap, he's not him. The DNA didn't match. They had to let him go. And so then John Mark Carr leaves again. And I'm like, wait a second. I thought, why wouldn't he go back to Petaluma to be tried there?
Were there charges pending in Petaluma?
I guess not. I thought that's why he ran.
I don't know.
I guess he must have then, you're right. So he must have just only been someone who was suspected of something.
Yeah.
And then he ran. But while he's here in the States, why let him go? Why wouldn't you, if you're the DA?
If there's no charges pending against you, they have to let you go.
Okay. All right. So now he's off wandering the world. And apparently
we don't know where he is now.
Oh God. But if you see that guy, don't let him teach your kids. Because apparently like they found out he was teaching in these all girls schools in Bangkok.
He was teaching all over the place.
Oh God, this guy. But he was, do you think he just wanted attention? Or do you think he wanted to, or he convinced himself he did it? I don't know.
Oh, I think he just wanted attention. He fantasized about being able to do that. And so he put himself in that person's shoes and then made this fantasy out of it. He's very sick individual.
Yeah. So I think, did we hit all the major points? I think so. I mean,
I think the point is that, I really think the overarching point is that if the Boulder Police Department is, so sure in their assessment that, John Ramsey had something to do with this, then they should welcome further DNA testing. Mm-hmm. They should do this DNA testing. And then they can say, see, and by the same token, like John Ramsey has the right to clear his name. And if this testing could clear his name and his son's name, and this is what the point is justice here. Mm-hmm. So we have this technology that could provide a form of justice. And so let's do it, And that's how the West Memphis 3, I don't know if we mentioned this at the top of the
No, I don't think we did.
podcast, but the man who produced this, Joel Berlinger, he's the same guy who made the documentary Paradise Lost and had a influence on having the West Memphis 3 exonerated because of DNA.
Yeah. Well, and also the case would have never gotten attention if Joe hadn't have done the documentary. And it was the first documentary that then inspired a lot of people to get on the bandwagon and make this happen, and a lot of celebrities. So yeah, he is definitely instrumental in getting those 3 boys freed.
Yeah. So, this is a serious guy. This is not just some willy-nilly, kind of one of these one-off documentaries you see on Netflix. I mean, this is serious. And, there's no reason not to do this genealogical DNA. It's being done all the time now, and they're catching killers. And, let's do it. What are you afraid of, Boulder Police Department?
Yeah. We challenge you.
You.
So, but I do think that one of the things they say at the end, which is, it's nice. I mean, John Ramsey is remarried to this woman, Jan, and they seem to be enjoying their lives, and his 3 children and his grandchildren, and they keep pictures of JonBenet. But the reality is that, there's been this cloud that's been hanging over John Ramsey and now Burke Ramsey. And I can't imagine being Burke Ramsey, like going to college. Can you imagine? Like, because we didn't talk about this, but Patsy, her ovarian cancer came back and she passed away in 2006. And he was in college at the time. And I'm thinking to myself, this poor kid, like you go to college, everyone's like, Ramsey, Burke, are you any related? I mean, and then, your mom passes away. And these people have been through a lot.
Yeah, they deserve, if they want the testing, they deserve to at least do the testing.
Yeah, you've tortured these people for 28 years. Why don't you at least let them clear their name? And again, you're absolutely right. There will always be people who believe they did it.
And test these other guys if they're still alive. All the guys who they showed, were.
But also, why can't they put the DNA into that CODIS and see if anything pops up?
Well, because they did that, but that's a very old system. Like, since then, the databases have expanded, a lot. Like, and also the CODIS, it has to do also with the separating of the DNA. If you have mixed DNA, it's more accurate if you can separate it. Back then, you couldn't separate it. Now you can separate the DNA. Even if it's a mixed sample, you can separate it. And it's 30 years ago. I mean, it's a lifetime ago. There's just all kinds of better forms of testing DNA in general. And then there's this whole new component of the genealogy where everyone's DNA is out there in these 23andMe databases. And if you can find someone, because that's how these killers get found, you find like a grandparent, a parent or an uncle or someone who gave their DNA voluntarily. And then you start to do, whatever these genealogists do, and you can trace it back. And they can find if there was someone living related to this DNA who was living in the Boulder area then.
But isn't CODIS everybody who's ever been convicted of a felony? Doesn't everyone have to give their DNA when you're convicted of a felony? Isn't that what CODIS is made up of?
I don't know.
Okay.
The sense that I got from this documentary is that CODIS is like an old system.
Okay.
But I'm not really sure. Not my area of expertise. But the point is, obviously, DNA testing is more sophisticated.
Yes, that's what I was going to say. Regardless,
28 years ago,
there are lots of things the Boulder police can do. Their hands are not tied. There are things they can do, and they should do it for everybody.
They should. Yeah. They should do it for everybody. Exactly. Everybody who could benefit from new DNA testing, who is, in jail, prison because of DNA. If there's some new thing, new technology, they should retest it.
Yes.
What a concept.
All right. Well, I thought this was a good documentary. Again, could have been shorter. I mean, I do feel like, I don't know. Did you think it was a little long?
Well, it wasn't too bad. I think they had to catch it up and give the history for people who are younger, I guess. I don't know. I didn't need to know. I mean, a lot. But, every time you watch one of these things, you do learn something new. Because,
you do.
We've been living with this case for a long time. You forget. And like you said, you weren't paying that close attention to every detail when it was happening.
Yeah.
So
I really did not know this case at all. I'll be honest. It wasn't until I watched that 2016 CBS show that I really even heard much about it, because again, I was not paying attention. I just, it was during a time in my life where I was focusing on myself.
Well, and it was during a time where we didn't have this media saturation. We didn't have any internet. Believe it or not, kids, 1996.
Well,
there was a rudimentary form of the internet, but we're not on it.
And I think that's also why younger people that are like 15 years younger than us, are more into it, because I think they were the ones coming home after school and watching Geraldo, watching the things, going to. Again, I was working. I wasn't home watching any of these things. I wasn't really even, maybe at the grocery store, but I wasn't paying attention. You're living a different kind of life.
Yeah.
So I feel like I learned a lot. The third episode was a lot of them showing us all the other creepers that it could potentially be. And I kept thinking, oh, is he it? Oh, no. Oh, is he it? No. Oh, no. Oh, is he it?
Well, let's find them and get their DNA.
But it's just so funny. It's like, let's just show you 4 or 5 really kind of creepy people. It could have been, but it wasn't. And I think the point they were trying to make is, listen, it wasn't like they didn't have other options besides the Ramseys to look at. There were other people that maybe possibly could have done this. So anywho.
All right.
Well, let's wrap it up. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you again for being a listener of our podcast. We're incredibly grateful for you and for all of your support. If you would like to continue to support us, then please give us a 5-star rating and review. Just the rating would be great. Those things really do help us. You can subscribe to the podcast, share it with a friend. And if you want even more info or more of us, go over to our Patreon, patreon.com/PsychLegalPop podcast. We have a weekly bonus where we talk about lots of we do like quick hits of pop culture things that are happening in the week. We also do a true crime that is just exclusive for Patreon that you will not hear here. We do an Ask Us Anything where we, solve the world's problems. Not quite, but but we're just bebopping through. So go check us out there. Yeah. And thank you so much. Follow us on social media at PsychLegalPop on Instagram and TikTok.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Happy holidays.
Happy holiday. Bye.
Bye.
This message comes from Jackson. Taxes aren't something you can only think about once a year. With investments, planning for tax day is year-round. Fortunately, Jackson offers tax-efficient products. Visit jackson.com for more information on how our products can make your tax bill a little bit less painful. Jackson is short for Jackson Financial Incorporated, Jackson National Life Insurance Company, Lansing, Michigan, and Jackson National Life Insurance Company of New York, Purchase, New York.
Howdy, howdy, ho, and welcome to Fantasy Fan Fellas. I'm Hayden, producer of the Fantasy Fangirls podcast and your resident lover of all things Sanderson.
And I'm Steven, your bookish internet goofball, but you can call me the Smash Daddy.
And we are currently deep diving Brandon Sanderson's fantasy epic, Mistborn. But here's the catch. Steven here has not read Mistborn before.
That's right, hey. So each week, you'll get my unfiltered, raw reactions to every single chapter.
And along the way, we'll do character deep dives, magic explainers, and Steven will even try to guess what's next. Spoiler alert, he'll be wrong.
Newsflash, I'm never wrong. Episodes come out every Wednesday, and you can find Fantasy Fan Fellas wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast powers the world's best podcasts. Here's a show that we recommend.
Chicago, 2011. A cop is murdered. Police and prosecutors swear they have the trigger man. He swears he didn't do it. How far will each side go to prove they're right?
Like it's just one bombshell after another, where you're like, what?
The story of a PlayStation, a brain-eating amoeba, and the relentless pursuit of justice. Off Duty, out now. Listen wherever you get your podcasts.
Acast helps creators launch, grow, and monetize their podcasts everywhere. acast.com.